In this video, we will implement multiple authentications in Laravel 11. We will continue with the previous project, explained in the earlier video where we covered the installation of Bootstrap authentication, CRUD operations, migrations, factories, seeders, Tinker, form validation, pagination, and search and sort filters. To start, go to your project root directory. In the address bar, remove the directory path and type cmd to open the command line prompt. Ensure that your XAMPP Apache and MySQL servers are running. In the command line prompt, run the command php artisan serve to start the local development server. Then, open your Chrome browser to check whether your Laravel project is functioning correctly. You can see that Bootstrap authentication has already been installed. Then go to phpMyAdmin. You notice that the users database table already exists. Next, we need to create a user_type database table to store the type of logged in users, such as normal users, admins, and superadmins. To create the user_type table, exit the serve command by pressing Ctrl+C in the command line prompt, and then run the command php artisan make migration. Then ask you for migration name, enter create_user_type_table and press enter. Now, you can find the create_user_type_table migration file within your project root database migrations directory. Open the create_user_type_table migration file and you'll find the migration code for the user_type database table, which includes the columns for ID and timestamps. Here, new column named type as a unique string and save the file. Then, open your command line prompt and run the command php artisan migrate. After executing this command, go to phpMyAdmin and you see that a new database table, user_type, has been created containing the columns ID, type, created_at, and updated_at. Now, we insert dummy user types such as user, admin, superadmin or employee into user_type database table by creating a seeder. To do this, open the command line and run the command php artisan make seeder usertype seeder. Here, usertype seeder is the name of the seeder, but you can choose any name you prefer. After executing this command, go to the project root directory, then go to the database seeders directory, where you will find the usertype seeder. Open the usertype seeder file and in the run function add dummy user types to the user_type database table, such as user, employee, admin, and superadmin. You can also add more user types if you wish. After that, advocate for DB as use illuminate /support /facades /DB at top of code and save the file. Then go to the command line and run the command php artisan db seed class is equal to usertype seeder. After executing the command, open phpMyAdmin, refresh the user_type table, and you will see the dummy user types added. To retrieve user type data, we need to create a model. To do this, open the command line prompt and run the command php artisan make model user type. In this command, user type is the name of the model corresponding to the user_type database table. After executing this command, go to the project root directory and open the app models folder, where you will find the user type model that was created. Open the user type model and add the line use illuminate /database /eloquent /factories /hasFactory at the top of the code. That hasFactory trait is used to generate fake data by creating instances of a model for testing and seeding data in a database. Then, add the line use hasFactory within the userType class and define a protected $table variable to specify the name of the database table, which is user_type. After that, define a protected $fillable array containing the columns of the user_type database table, such as type. The $fillable array protects data from malicious users when performing create and update functionalities. Once you have made these changes, save the usertype model file. Then, go to the project root directory, go to app http controllers auth, and open the register controller file and include the usertype model at the top of the code by adding use app /models /usertype. We want to display a user type selection dropdown on the user registration form. This allows users to select their type during registration. To achieve this, we need to pass the user type data to the registration form view. So to do this, go to the project root directory in the crowds directory and open the web.php file. Since we have installed the Laravel Bootstrap Auth UI package, the auth routes method is autoloaded. This means we cannot directly determine the authentication model, view, and controller from this file. So, check the register controller file. You will notice that no function is defined to show the registration form. In the Bootstrap Auth UI package, traits are created for authentication within the vendor Laravel UI Auth backend directory. These traits include authenticates users, handles login requests, confirms passwords, manages password confirmation for users, redirects users, determines the post-login or registration redirect path, registers users, handles registration requests, resets passwords, manages password resets, sends password reset emails, sends password reset links to users, throttles logins, determines if a user has too many failed login attempts, and verifies emails, marks the authenticated user's email as verified. In the register controller, the registers users trait is used. If you open the registers users file, you'll find a method called showRegistrationForm, which is used to display the registration form. However, we cannot pass the user type data to the registration form from here. To resolve this, we need to override the showRegistrationForm method. We do this by creating a new method with the same name, showRegistrationForm, where we can retrieve the user type data using the userType model class and the goal function. We will store this data in a variable called $usertypes, which will then be passed to the registration view and save all changes. To display the user type selection, go to the project root directory, specifically to resources views auth, and open the register.blade.php view, and below the email address field, add a user type selection dropdown by creating a div with the classes row and MB3. Next, include a label for user type. Create another div with the class column MD6 and add a select element with the class form control for user type. In the form control class, check for any validation errors associated with user_type and apply an error class if needed. Set the default selection option to select user type. Then, check if the variable $usertypes exists. If it does, create a for each loop to iterate over $usertypes and display the options using the user type value. After setting up the dropdown, add the code to display validation error messages for the user_type field. And save the register.blade.php view, then go to the register controller file. In the validator function, include validation for the user_type field to ensure it is marked as required and save the register controller file. After that, open the command line prompt and start the local development server by running the command php artisan serve. After executing the command, go to your Chrome browser and refresh the register page. You see the user type dropdown added. If you submit the registration form without selecting a user type, a validation error for the user_type will be displayed. Now, To save the selected user type in the users database table, you need to add a user_type column to the users database table. Now, we add a new field called user_type to the users database table by creating a migration. To do this, go to the command line prompt and press Ctrl+C to exit from the serve command. Then, run the command phpartisan make a migration and press enter. It will ask you to enter the migration name, type in add_user_type_in_users_table and press enter, and add_user_type_in_users_table migration file created, which can be found in the project's root directory under the database migrations folder. Open the migration file and add the schema in the up function to add a new user_type column as a string with the default user type, user, and set it to not null in the users database table after the email column. To reverse this migration, write the corresponding schema in the down function to drop the user_type column from the users database table and save the migration file. Next, go to the command line prompt and run the command phpartisan migrate to execute the migration. After running this command, go to phpMyAdmin and refresh the users database table. You see that the new column, user_type, has been added. Now, go to the project root directory and open the user model file located in the app models directory. Add user_type to the $fillable array and save the user model. Then, go to the register controller file and in the create function, add the user_type field and save the register controller file. Then, go to the command line prompt and run the command phpartisan serve to start local development. Then open your web browser, refresh the registration page, and enter the dummy details, name as test name, email as test@gmail.com, select user type, and set the password as 12345678 and confirm password as 12345678. After filling in the details, submit the registration form. Then, go back to phpMyAdmin, refresh the users database table, and you see that the new dummy user data has been added with the user_type as the user. We have set user types for each user. When a user logs in as a role user, admin, employee, or super admin, we must assign authentication restriction to access the dashboard and product details on each user's type. To do this, we need to create middleware to restrict routes according to the user type. So, open the command line prompt, press Ctrl+C to exit the current server command, and then run the command phpartisan make middleware user_type middleware. Here, user_type middleware is the name of the middleware being created. After running this command, the middleware will be generated in the project's root directory, specifically in the app http middleware folder. Open the middleware file and locate the handle function. This is where you can implement custom logic before passing the request to the next middleware or controller. Middleware filters the HTTP requests coming into your application, bridging the request and the response. It allows you to inspect and modify the request before forwarding it to the controller or taking action before sending a response. In this middleware, you will check if the authenticated user's user type matches any specified types and grant access accordingly. Using the splat operator, you can pass multiple user types to the handle function. This operator captures all the additional arguments passed to the middleware and stores them in an array called $types. You need to verify if the logged-in user has one of the specified types. If access is denied, remove $next, $request, and instead redirect to the home page with an error message. After making these changes, be sure to save the middleware file. Next, to register this middleware, go to the project root directory, then go to the Bootstrap directory and open the app.php file. Here, the with middleware function is typically used to apply middleware to the entire application. You will register the user-type middleware with an alias of user-type and save the app.php file. After that, to define routes that utilize the user-type middleware for restricting access based on user-type, open the routes-web.php file in the project root directory. This is where you can implement middleware for the admin user-type for routes related to product listing, creation, storage, editing, updating, and deletion. For the user type, include routes that only allow displaying the product list. Make sure to save the web.php file upon completion. After saving all changes, go to the command line prompt and start the local development server by running the command php artisan serve. Then, open your Chrome browser and refresh the dashboard page. Now, we log in as the user type, user, and you will find that you cannot access the options to create, store, edit, or delete products. So go to the product list and if you click on Add Product, it will redirect you back to the dashboard page and display an error message. Similarly, if you go to the product list and click on the Edit or Delete button, you will also be denied access and an error message will be displayed from the Home Blade view. Now, we create a user with the type admin. So log out of this page, go to registration and enter the name as admin, the email as admin@gmail.com and use the password 12345678 and confirm password as well 12345678. Then submit the registration form and you will be redirected to the dashboard page. Repeat the process by going to the product list and clicking on the Add Product button. As an admin user, you will find that you now have access to add products. You can also access the option to edit products in the same manner. This demonstrates the implementation of multiple authentication levels. I hope you understand the logic behind multiple authentication. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel.